Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Pressbox Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
It's Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. Welcome to the Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, Cavs, Philly Tailgates, and the Edge of Philly Sports Network. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Jim Chet Chesko. Chet, the Phillies are just 8 days from opening day. Zach Wheeler has been named a starter. Bryce Harper having an injury issue. The Eagles have added a couple more free agents while losing a couple of offensive line reserves. That's not good. The Flyers have just 13 games left in the regular season. Things are getting tight. The Sixers continue to bounce back between 6th and 7th spot in the standings. They're down to just 14 games left. March Madness brackets are in place with no Big Five teams and a lot of conference tournament madness already. There's plenty to talk about, that's for sure, in Philly sports.
Yeah, Bill, late March and early April, always action-packed with, Major League Baseball getting to start its regular season. March Madness, as you mentioned, tipping off. NBA and NHL regular seasons winding down. Lots of teams jockeying for a playoff position. Of course, the Eagles and other NFL teams are busy with those roster moves. The Birds also adding a backup quarterback of interest as free agency continues and teams start preparing for next month's draft. Very, very busy time of the year on the sports scene.
Absolutely. And we've got a bunch of great guests tonight that are going to talk all about it. You had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Philly Spring Training, Chris Wheeler. Boop, Bob Vetrone Jr. is back to talk NCAA tournament. And a first-time guest and author, Eric Gray. We have great guests tonight on Philly Pressbox Radio.
Bill, it is the very rare 3-guest show, but we can handle it. We better get it going, though, before we run out of time.
That's right. Let's do it. And we'll start out by you making your annual trek to what's become an annual trek to Florida. This week, got to visit with a bunch of people, including Wheels, Chris Wheeler, as we said. And Miss Linda went along with you this time. So we'll talk some more about that. What's Wheels thinking about those 2024 fightings?
Well, first, always good to see Wheels. And after the postseason runs of the last couple of years, he, like most Phillies fans, is excited to see what happens here in 2024. So here's our chat. All right, coming to you from Baycare Ballpark, it's Chris Wheeler. Wheels, let me ask you, you've been here many, many years, every spring. Is the atmosphere at all different this year, or what is the vibe down here?
Last 2 years, this year, you really notice it, Chet. And obviously it has to do with the last 2 seasons with the success in postseason. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of star players on this team. They don't get to see them play every day because that's not the way you do it in spring training. But we've been packed almost every game. So, it's different. There's a lot of enthusiasm. The store downstairs is selling tons of memorabilia and stuff and clothing and all that. So, everything's good.
Does the way last season ended, those 2 games against the Diamondbacks in Philly, does that give you an extra incentive to succeed this year?
Epitome of sports. You don't know. The Phillies were so hot as a team at home in postseason, as everybody knows, that you thought, 4 home games, we're probably going to have a chance to win the series. And didn't expect to have Arizona come back the way that they did. But to their credit, they figured it out. After the first 2 games when the Phillies were hitting fastballs 500 feet, they decided that maybe we ought to throw some breaking balls in here. I think the main thing, Chet, was that the Phillies hit a lot of fastballs out of the ballpark in the first 2 games. And on the flight to Arizona, they figured it out that we're not going to throw it to them anymore. And if they want to chase, good. If they don't, then we're going to have to throw it to them because we're going to get in counts where fastballs have to be thrown. For whatever reason, up and down that lineup, guys started chasing, and they never got out of it. And they just weren't able to get done with a 2-0 lead and even come home with just having to win one more game in that atmosphere. I think we're all surprised that happened.
Bryce Harper here from the start this year. How big is that, knowing that, if all goes well, you're going to have Bryce Harper for the entire year?
Really good, really good. He is experiencing quote unquote a little back stiffness right now. He hasn't played for a few days. To get him healthy, to have him here for a full spring. This is the first year he was talking about. This is the first year he's had a full spring training here in Clearwater. When you get down to signing late and then the COVID and then all the other things that are going on. He had the elbow. Last year he was late being able to play last year. He's had a good time this year being able to play right from the start and get all his work in. And obviously he's learning a new position too. He's really good down there, though. I see no reason that he shouldn't be an outstanding Major League first baseman.
We know about the pitching rotation. We know about the guys at the top of the rotation, but I'm hearing a lot of good things about Christopher Sanchez. What's your view on him?
I liked him last year. He competes. When we got him from Tampa Bay, he was a hard thrower. He can still throw his fastball pretty well, but he's really developed an outstanding changeup and the ability to pitch inside a little bit and then go away with his changeup, sink his fastball. And everybody who talks about him says he's kind of like Ranger Suarez. He doesn't have a heartbeat out there. He just goes out there and competes and doesn't get over pumped up about things one way or the other. Hey, look, if he's the fifth starter and you're able to go with that, that would be really great. But, there's some stuff in between there that you have to work out too.
Wheels, you're Mr. Spring Training. How long have you been doing this, the PA for the Spring Phillies?
My first spring training, Chet, was 1972 at Jack Russell Stadium. And I don't want to use his name, but it was a gentleman, it was a friend of the Carpenter family that did the PA there all the time. So Larry Shank, who was my boss, and I'm scared to death. I mean, I'm walking around with the head down, just don't tick anybody off or anything. He comes up to me, he says, "Hey, did you ever do the PA before?" And I went, "Sure, I hadn't." He said, "Well, look, our PA announcer got a little overserved last night." He said, "We'd like to, could you just do it for today and we'll see what happens?" And I said, "Sure," and I Wally pipped him. I've been doing that ever since. There were a few years, I think it was 3 years, where Comcast Sportsnet televised every game down here. And since I was part of the TV crew in those days, I didn't do the PA for those 3 years. But since 72 till now, I've done it every year, and I enjoy it. It's fun.
The big question in recent days, should the Phillies continue to use Dancing on My Own as their song or change it up this year?
As someone whose clock stopped with Elvis, I don't know Stubbs and those guys.
Yeah.
The only guy I know anymore is Nola, because I drafted him. Gary Matthews and I went up to that night for the Major League Baseball draft representing the Phillies. We drafted Aaron Nola.
Really?
And I kid him all the time when I'd see him. I said, "Don't mess up. I drafted you." And he laughs about that because he's such a good guy. But as far as, I don't know what goes on down there. So whatever they do with the music, whatever they think works for them. I met Kyle Schwarber at a Phillies function the other night. First time I ever met him and talked to him. He looks you right in the eye when he talks to you. And I said, "You guys talk baseball?" And he went, "You bet we do." I said, "That's interesting, because from what I hear in the game nowadays, it wasn't like the way we grew up, that they talked the game, they sat around it." He said, "We absolutely talked the game." And he looked right at me, and I thought, I like that.
Wheels, it's going to be a fun season, we hope. Enjoy.
Yeah, thanks, Chet. It should be a fun season. Hopefully we get off to a little better start and not be 16 games behind and then have to struggle in some wild card position in postseason. But the Braves, they're coming in the first day. They added Chris Sale. We saw him earlier this year, and he looked like Chris Sale, unfortunately. We hope that doesn't last all year. But the Braves are the Braves. They're really good.
You heard it. Chris Wheeler, great to talk to you again, my friend.
Chad, always great to talk to Wheels, and the spring training's been something, as you got to experience over the weekend. You got to go to a game, I guess Monday, and it's like it's become a tourist attraction now.
Oh yeah, it's not really about the game that much. I didn't even pay that much attention. Pirates were beating up on the Phillies, by the way, 11-2 on Monday when I was there. So I don't know how that happened, but yeah, just such a great atmosphere, and you see a whole bunch of people. And speaking of which, thanks to our buddy Carl Henderson, who was down there, saw the big C down there. He's, there every spring, and chatted with him for a bit. He told me, hey, down at the end of the row was Dan Baker. So I found Dan Baker, said hello to him. And who was sitting with Dan Baker but Richard Allen Jr.? He looks just like his dad, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
Wow. Before the game, by the way, Larry Bow was presented with a plaque for that hole-in-one that he got on one of the local golf courses down there last month. That was pretty cool. Let's see. You mentioned my wife. Yeah, she was there with me. Actually went to the game and we stayed till the 9th inning. So I was shocked, but we had a good time. It was very, very nice.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I didn't know you were going to throw that picture up or any of those pictures up there. But you have Miss Linda up there. Did she actually sit by herself most of the game while you were out chatting?
No, it was probably about just 1/4 of the game. I made 2 little brief trips to say hello to the folks. And as it turns out, Carl and Dan Baker and Richie Allen Jr. were sitting like the next section over from us, just a little bit behind. So it was all in the same general area. So I took good care of her, got her some lemonade and stuff. I had an adult beverage or 2, of course.
There you go. How did the Florida weather treat you? I ordered it for you. I hope it worked out.
My goodness, it was sunny and 85 every day. As you know, we spent 3 days in Disney, Saratoga Springs, very near Disney Springs, the old downtown Disney. So it was great. Sunny and 85 Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday drove over past Lakeland, your exit, as you know.
Timey.
Yep, and went to Tampa and Clearwater, and again, it was a beautiful day. Monday was a little iffy. Got a couple little sprinkles in the morning before noon, but then it became just partly cloudy in the afternoon and into the low 80s, so they got the game in without a problem, and it was just awesome. One other picture I want to show you, Bill. This was from actually Disney Springs. I know you're going to be jealous when I show you this one, but here it is. Look at that.
Oh, Jesus.
Me and the Oscars, Bill, as a Hollywood guy, I just had to take advantage of this photo opportunity, given my love of Hollywood and the movies. So just admit it, Bill, you're jealous that you didn't get that.
It would have been a little better if you'd have stood up on that pedestal and maybe put a picture of Oscar Gamble next to you or Oscar De La Hoya or, there's plenty of real Oscars besides the Hollywood frauds.
Oh, my goodness. We were walking around Disney Springs, and I saw that, and my eyes just lit up. I said, Linda, I got to get that picture. So there it is.
Hey, I have one story. I didn't know the Wheels story about him drafting Aaron Nola.
I didn't either.
I have my own story about that Aaron Nola.
He didn't actually make the draft pick. He just announced it,
He announced it, right. But Aaron Nola threw his first professional pitch with the Clearwater Phillies at the time, I believe it was, in Lakeland. And I was sitting on the third base dugout. Dallas Green was there. Charlie Manuel was there. A bunch of others were there. And so while Wheels made the selection, I got to see Aaron Nola's very first professional appearance in the A-ball against the Lakeland Tigers back in the time.
And you probably said, this guy's never going to make it.
No, I tell you what, he threw really good, but he had a really weird mechanics. And I thought, I thought, man, this guy's going to have arm problems because he had a really weird elbow thing going on. But
he's stayed healthy as pretty much his whole career.
Yeah, they fixed him up really good. So, hey, good stuff with Wheels as always. And glad you had a great trip to spring training. I hope this Bryce Harper thing, that's certainly a big deal. Hope he's not injured and he's going to sit, it looks like, the rest of spring training, so we won't see him again till opening day, and hopefully he's in business.
A little concerned about 2 guys. We'll get off this subject quickly, but Kyle Schwarber hasn't done anything. He's hitting like 120, and the guy they want to play center field, Johan Rojas, is hitting 156 so far. That is not going to cut it. We want to get him over 200.
I'm not thinking Rojas not going to make the team.
Yeah, they may start him at AAA as we discussed last week.
Dave threw an Oscar. I forgot.
Oscar.
So, I think he's going to end up. He hasn't earned a spot with his 150 batting average. He's going to start in AAA. I feel pretty sure. I don't know when they'll announce that, or I think Pache is going to play if Marsh is healthy enough to play every day. He's going to play every day, and I'd be really, really surprised at this point if Rojas goes north.
Yep. Hey, it's almost Boop time, but you want to tell us about what is happening on our network?
Well, I certainly do. Let's give a shout out to all the shows at the Edge of Philly Sports Network this week. As always, the gang has everything covered. You can catch all the action on www.eopsports.com, as well as Edge of Philly Sports on YouTube. You can find all our shows, also find our show on the Philly Pressbox Radio YouTube channel. Help us out. Hit those subscribe, follow, like buttons. And as always, share with your family and friends. As you see, we got it all covered.
We do.
You know what? If you go on YouTube, you will get to see Boop, because after we talk about what's going on at the Irish Rover Station House, our man Bob Vetrone Jr. is joining us.
Yes, he is. And speaking of the Irish Rover, lots going on there. As you know, they were very busy all of last week leading up to it, including St. Patrick's Day, but there's still plenty more on the upcoming schedule. You know this. They have dinner specials Thursdays through Sundays. Thursday, they also have killer burgers to choose from, and a quizzo every Wednesday evening, and then live music on the weekends, Saturday nights. Aaron Quaterman providing the tunes this weekend. And we told you that there's another one of those great paint and sip events coming up. That is next week, the 26th. That is always a big hit. That is just some of what's on tap at the Irish Rover. Get it? Along with 24 beers, of course. The Rover located on Bellevue Avenue in Langhorne. And you can check out their website. That, of course, is IrishRoverStationHouse.com.
Hi, football fans. This is Merrill Reese, and you're listening to Bill and Chet on Philly Pressbox Radio. It's good!
Yes, it is, Merle. It is good. It's also March Madness time, and no one better to talk about brackets, favorites, upsets, bets, and so on than Boop himself. Welcome back, Bob Vetrone Jr.
Gentlemen.
There he is.
What's up, Boop?
How you doing? How you doing, man?
If Wheels is the what is he, the king of spring training?
He is Mr. Spring Training.
Mr. Spring Training.
I'll be Mr. No Training, okay? So,
No comment, Boop. I'm going to be nice.
That's all I could muster to get myself down the steps to the basement here tonight. So,
Hey, great seeing you a couple of Saturdays ago, by the way, out at the bar. That was nice.
It was good. Somewhere different.
They're all checking in, Boop. Everybody's giving you the shout outs.
Yeah, everybody loves Boop.
But when they do that, that makes my picture smaller. So I can't get,
well,
stop doing that.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Boop, I don't know if this comment is meant for you or for Chet. I'm going to go with it's for Chet.
He's a diva? Yeah.
I'm not thinking that's you,
called
Boop.
worse.
No,
I've been called worse. All right, Boop, let's get to it. We hope to get some good betting tidbits from you regarding the NCAA tournament. But first, this marks the second straight year that no men's teams from the Philly area are in the dance. Has that ever happened before, 2 years in a row? And what does that say about the state of the Big Five?
Yeah, it hadn't, not in the 64 team era. Before last year it was 1977, which was a 32 team bracket back then. And it hadn't, and back-to-back years hadn't been to like 52 and 53 perhaps, when it was like 12 or whatever. So no, it hasn't. The sad part is it could happen again. The transfer portal has it in for a team like Villanova, who likes to get their players developed and their team developed over the course of a year. Transfer portal also hurt Penn, the second leading scorer in the nation left. A couple of the Big Five schools are in leagues that are above their heads, so they are going to have a tough time getting in. At the end of a decade from now, we may be talking about how Drexel is like the only NCAA regular team we've seen from the city in a while, because they have just about the best slot, a pretty good team in a mediocre conference, but the conference is getting worse because some of their good teams are moving on to the bigger conferences. So, it's all about the landscape that you're in. LaSalle they haven't been less than an 8 seed in the Atlantic 10 tournament since like 2013. So they're in the wrong conference. Temple shot a little high, and they had to because of football. I get it. But that league, even though it lost some good teams, is hard to win despite, they got 4 postseason tournament wins in the AAC this week. They had only had 3 total in the 9 years before this, since they joined. So the key to getting into the tournament to me, and this is nationwide, is being in the right conference. And at least 2 or 3 of our teams right now are not in the right conference to do that.
Well, Boop, do any of those schools have, I know they have the resources somewhere, but do they have the NIL set up to recruit any guys that could change that around any?
I got to tell you, I am such an old school college that
Whoop.
I don't pay that much attention to the NIL. It's kind of like professional contracts. I don't care so much how much guys make, how many years it is, I just want to watch them play. So, yeah, there are certainly NILs in place for the schools around here. I'm guessing Villanova has the most at their disposal. Who knows about the rest? There's got to be something there, or else, they'd have no one playing at this point. So, yeah, there's something there. I don't know much about it. I don't want to know much about it. I still have an altruistic thought process about college athletics that players are
Unfortunately,
there to play and, I don't know, learn. So, yeah, I couldn't answer about the NILs. I'm sorry.
Altruistic. Stop with the big words, Boob. You're going to,
I got
confuse our
penultimate
audience.
written down for later.
All right. UConn, Houston, Purdue, North Carolina. They are the number 1 seeds for the tournament. Does that automatically make them the betting favorites to cut down the nets next month? Or is there some number 2 or 3 or 4 seed that experts give a real good chance of being the last team standing?
Yeah, there was really only 5 teams considered for the top seed, and it kind of played itself out in conference weekend. As I'll tell you a little bit later in a betting tip I have, I would discount North Carolina just from the get-go. There's the back-to-back titles, which haven't been done in a while, which UConn is going for. They can certainly do that. At the end of the day, and from what little bit I've watched over the last month or so, Houston is as good and as consistent as a team that's out there. So they're, in my eyes, they're probably the best bet. I'm not going to bet them, obviously. And Purdue's got maybe the best player in the country. So any of those 3 number 1s to me are the chalk. The Carolina thing, I'll tell you, is this is not your father's ACC. I mean, we saw NC State cut through the conference tournament like a hot knife through butter. We watched Virginia, who is, by the way, the last ACC team to win a title, get clobberwalkied last night. So my betting tip is I'm betting against all the ACC teams against the spread. Not Duke and Carolina the first round because they got blowouts on their mind. But I'll bet against them with an alternate line in the second round. NC is going to play either Mississippi State or Michigan State, and Duke will go against Wisconsin, who I really like, and James Madison, who's having a hell of a year. But the other 2 ACC teams there, NC State, I'm going to take Texas Tech at a -7.5, and I'm going to take New Mexico by -5.5 over Clemson. So I'm counting on none of the ACC teams covering much over the course of the next 5 days, and quite possibly there being none left when we get to next Monday morning.
Wow. Well, hey, Boop, is there so much parity in the NCAA basketball now that you can expect 9 through 16s to actually have chances to win some of these games against the upper half of the brackets? There's a lot of good teams out there.
Yeah, and the transfer portal has a lot to do with that. There are players that transferred up, but there are also players that transferred down because they could needed a little better stage for what they had. And there are people coming from D2 and D3, as there always have been, that are a little probably should have been at this level to begin with. So yeah, the 9s to the 16s and even those 1 bid leagues at the bottom, they've always played well in pockets. They're playing well more consistently now. I think generally they're starting to get a little bit of regular season scheduling against the bigger clubs because the committee says schedule matters. So there is some leeway when you're scheduling teams in December to not always take the Little Sisters of the Poor and a home and home, and maybe you go and then do a 2-for-1 with a Kentucky or a high big team, and that gives the little guys, quote unquote, a better chance and makes their players better, their teams better, and their coaches better.
Well, Boop, before we get to your betting tips, we got to bring this up briefly. While Temple men were making their incredible run that fell 1 game short last weekend, but NC State, Duquesne, and some other underdogs did win their conference tournaments and a trip to the dance. While all this was happening, my esteemed colleague poo-pooed the whole conference tournaments, calling them a money grab and basically saying those teams didn't belong in the dance, even if they won the tournament. What say you, Boop? What say you?
If you want a Masters Jeopardy tournament of just the 5 or 6 superpowers in basketball, you can take that and sit in a room and watch that all day. That's not fun. You've already got that in football with the what I call the only 4 as opposed to the final 4. It's going to be 8, which is better. So that's not what this is about. If you played last year's NCAA tournament 1,000 times, Connecticut wins maybe 100 of them, and maybe some of the other teams win. There are, it's like I keep thinking back to the old ABC Superstars competition, with the all the different kind of things you had to do to get by, and that's what the NCAA tournament is to me. You got different kinds of teams you have to beat. What happens in the other half of your bracket matters to what you're going to play next. You have to play a team in 2 days that played a 4 overtime game. There's a lot of machinations that go into making the NCAA tournament fun. The preamble to that, not even the preseason, is the conference tournaments, little mini parts of this, which those to me are more about anything, not about the sport. It's about the college aspect of it, that you get cheerleaders and band members and staff members and family members to all go together to Fort Worth or wherever your conference is and have an outing and meet some of the other kids on the team, some people on the other team. It's more of what college staff is like. You're teaching the student athletes a little bit more about camaraderie, history in some cities and all. There's a lot more to the conference tournament, to me, in my altruistic eyes, than who's going to be the best team in the conference. That is ultimately what's there for. But I've been on those trips. I went with Villanova to the Big East for a couple of years when my dad was doing radio, and every year it was meeting some new people, watching different players. My funnest thing was seeing how some of the Villanova players knew players in other schools, and seeing that, hey, it's not always us against them. So those conference tournaments are there for basketball, A, but for life, B. So they ever did away with them, it would really hurt my love of the sport.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I got to get my piece in here. I got to get my piece in here. Since the two of you ganged up on me, you're both wrong. You're both wrong. You're both still wrong, because you don't get rewarded for stinking for 3 months and being good for a week. And in the meantime, a bum team like Temple, face it, they were not good. If they were to make it, you have a good Indiana State team who is sitting at home. You got a USF team that's sitting at home.
That's what makes it fun.
Well, it's not fun if you're the team that was pretty good for 2 or 3 months and you got knocked off by a team that had no business being there.
Well, then go win your own tournament.
So, well, maybe if you got to play a bum team like Temple, you would have. So, and I have nothing against Temple. They just weren't good this year.
What a Grinch.
No, it's not. It's not that. If you worked hard all season long and you're a really good team, you just got upset in your tournament. And now you get to watch at home while a team that has no business being there is in. Just because you won 3 games in a week is not a reward. That's everybody gets a trophy thinking.
Well, they had the same opportunity, to win the tournament. If they had a little better season, they would have gotten in that large bid. And yeah, Indiana State should have been in. I agree. They probably had as good a team as didn't get in as out there. But I don't feel bad for the lower echelon majors that didn't get in, because they have strength of schedule handed to them, and Indiana State doesn't. So, yeah, it is not good for the Indiana States, but the process was there. They had an in. On March 1st, 350 schools are still eligible to win the NCAA championship, one way or another, having secured that large bid or having a good enough season to do that, or to win your conference championship. And that's what makes it fun for me, that, there's still a large group of hope out there. And again, Grand Canyon's not going to win the NCAA championship, this just in. But their bar is maybe the Sweet 16 or, just getting a win in there. That's what makes this tournament, to me, 30 different tournaments in one, as opposed to who's just cutting down the nets on April 11th or whenever it is.
All right, Boop, give us some betting tips, little tidbits.
Well, I did mention about the NC State, how I'm going against, the ACC, how I'm going against them in just about every game. I'm a big over-under guy, and I do alternate over-unders. And, boy, I've looked at some scores over the years. There are certain games, and it usually happen to me, I noticed later at night in the first and second days, that they just can't get any kind of offense going. So I usually tend to take, like, the last couple of nights' games and bet the over-under alternate, like 5 or 6 under the line. It just tends to get less and less. I guess sitting around all day, I think, might get you a little antsy, and it just causes maybe a little bit more nerves. It's just something I've noticed in the back of my eye, and because I do have an over-under tendency. Other than the ACC, Big 12, man, they just played real. Iowa State proved that, that might be the best conference out there. So when a Big 12 team goes up against another Power 5 team, I'm going to lean, I think, towards the Big 12 in those instances. conferences, despite that the committee doesn't look at conferences per se, the style of play and the quality of play means a lot when it comes to this time of year.
Well, Boop, who are you able to say who your Final Four is going to be at this point?
I didn't make a bracket. We do a different kind of pool. We just pick one team on each of the seed lines and add up wins. I really don't have a Final Four. I think at this point, I think Houston has the best shot to win. I don't want Connecticut to win. I don't want back-to-back champion. I don't think North Carolina could do it. It wouldn't be terrible if Purdue won. They lost last year in the first round to FDU. When Virginia lost to Baltimore County a couple of years ago, they came back and rebounded with a title. So there's precedent for that. So keep your eye on that. They have the best player in the country probably at this point, so they could do it. Houston or Purdue.
All right, last thing, Boop, real quick, because we're already behind schedule. Go figure.
I'll talk faster.
Not you. On the women's side, there's a lot of interest in Dawn Staley's unbeaten South Carolina squad, and of course, Iowa and Caitlin Clark. What is the level of interest now in the women's tournament this year? I'm guessing it's pretty high.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who was I've seen talk to in the bar and Facebook friend who was really upset that LSU and Iowa were in the same bracket because she thought she would really like to have seen them go to the Final Four, the defending champion in Iowa. And I looked at it and I believe that they put them in the same bracket because it would be a Monday final, a regional final, which is the one regional final day that the women doesn't share with the men. There is people that don't normally pay attention to the women or not as much that are interested because of the great tournament, which it was last year, from the Villanova aspect, because they made a run, the LSU winning the whole thing, and Caitlin Clark then, and then the year she had this year to go off the charts, as well as an undefeated Dawn Staley, who, I love that she's undefeated. I love that she's won titles, but I'll tell you what I like about Dawn Staley and what was the best thing about the women's tournament to me was after they had the really rough and tumble game in their conference championship, the whoever girl was at the other team, I even forget what the other team was, made it a point to go to Dawn after the game and say, hey, that wasn't right. We got it wrong, and apologize. And I really think, again, these are college, for lack of a better word, kids. And when you learn about life, when you're playing sports, then everybody wins.
There you go.
No argument with that. Are you laying any money on that women's tournament as well, or just
I really didn't think about that at all. I probably should. I think I'll look into that. I'll dive into my winnings and
don't tell your wife I said it.
Yeah, she's the only woman I bet on.
There you go. You got a winner, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Boop, as always, thanks for taking the time to visit us. All our people certainly love when we have you on the show. You're a good man.
Thank you, sir. Be good, guys.
All right, Boop. Hey, Chet, what's going on with the best tailgaters in Philadelphia? Bob Cavanaugh and the gang of Phillies tailgates. I believe you had a chance to run into Cav down in Clearwater.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a picture. We actually had a couple of adult beverages together. How about that? Go figure. Always good to see Cav. That was Sunday night, St. Patrick's Day at Jimmy's Crow's Nest, the rooftop bar in Clearwater Beach. Great place. I go there every year. One of my favorites. Good to see Cav. Cav's Philly Tailgates. You know all about them. He's been cooking up a terrific tailgating business and catering business for more than 30 years. He has these great tailgate parties. He's a 3-time winner of Philly Tailgates, Jack Daniels Great American Tailgate Party Contest, and he's a past winner of the Philly Daily News Tailgate Award. He does corporate events, parties, you name it. As for upcoming events, now you see what's on the list right here. The Phillies opener next Thursday, the 28th, the WrestleMania events in early April, and Kenny Chesney, June 8th. Cav told me he's going to be adding a bunch more to the website in the very near future because he's got a lot of things going on this summer. Get all the details from him, the website, phillytailgates.com. If you have any questions, you can email them, cavscatering@verizon.net. Cavs Philly Tailgates is the way to go. And Cav works with Vince at Philly Sports Trips, and boy, they have a lot going on as well. Not only do they do all the Eagles road games, but they do these, Phillies trips during the course of the season, a lot of Philadelphia Union trips. They're going all over the place. Austin, Nashville, Boston, Baltimore, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and, oh yeah, that Phillies London trip in June. And of course, they will get you to Brazil for the Eagles season opener down there. That is a week-long trip. Get all the details on that website, phillysportstrips.com.
Hey, Chet, I hate to tell you this, but somebody's not really happy with you. I didn't put the first comment up because we were in the middle of talking, but here we go.
Oh, no.
So just so you know, somebody is not real thrilled with you at the moment.
I'm sorry, Robbie. I had just a lot going on Sunday night, and, we did catch up last year, and next year, if we're down there at the same time, I promise we will make it happen, Robbie.
Robbie, maybe he didn't see your comment because he just, we'll leave it at that. Hey, one other thing I want to throw out here.
I thought she was going to be at the Monday game. She was only at the Sunday game, so that's why I didn't try to make plans in advance.
My man, Joe Howell, he kept getting the business because he kept talking about Caitlin Clark, and I got onto him and said, we're not going to respect his comments until he learns to spell it right. Well, apparently he's got it, Joe. We see you. All right, Chet, the Flyers. Huge win last night against Toronto. It puts them in a pretty, holding on to their position. There's some teams. Washington Capitals are now the hot team. The Tampa Bay Lightning is still a hot team. Flyers are still in their spot, but the season's getting short. They need to keep on winning.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the game last night, but a big win. They needed those points. So got to keep winning because, as you said, it's going down to the wire. I want to ask you, though, what do you make of the Sean Couturier healthy scratch? The new captain gets scratched like 3 weeks into his captaincy. Explain that one, Bill.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I can explain it. I mean, it's one of two things. You have the pulse of your team to realize that you're going to get a positive reaction from that. And a positive reaction from Couturier. So it's a positive Tortorella move, or it blows up in your face.
Yeah.
And it sure could do that when you do that to your captain. And but, one thing about Tortorella, he takes no prisoners. I mean, he just said, I need more. I need you to play better. And it don't matter if you're the captain or you're the last guy. The expectations are high, and you got to produce.
Yep. Hey, Bill, because we're behind schedule, we got to get to our interview with Eric Gray.
Yeah.
Talking about this great book right here, Backyards to Ballparks. I'm going to load that interview right now. I met him indirectly through our pal Matt Goldberg, who's been, of course, with us on the show, I think, 3 different times. So Eric's Facebook page, also, I connected with him on there. He does an obscure songs thing. So he wrote these great baseball books, and thought it would be fun to talk with him about the books and more. And boy, he did not disappoint. So here's my interview with Eric Gray. It's a great time of year for baseball fans with another season fast approaching. And we're going to talk a little baseball with a guy who has written a terrific book about the sport and what baseball means to so many of us. The book is this one, Backyards to Ballparks, more personal stories from the stands and beyond. And the author is Eric C. Gray. Eric, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, Chet. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Eric, this is actually your second baseball book. The first was Bases to Bleachers, and now we have Backyards to Ballparks. You're obviously a lifelong baseball fan, but what inspired you to do these books?
I was at a game. We live in San Francisco. I was at a Giants game with my wife and my daughter and a friend. And, the pace of baseball just enables you to talk with the people that you're with, talk with strangers, or just think. And I just was looking at this at the field, and I had the question came into my mind, which I posed to them. What's your favorite moment at a game? What was your favorite memory? And then I just began asking a whole bunch of friends, and I asked them to ask their friends. But what really sparked it, I made a list of my favorite, the favorite events I'd ever been to, which was, being at Mickey Mantle's retirement day and the game I was at spring training when a photographer took a picture of my kids with Dusty Baker. But when I made this list with people, it was just a list. I didn't, it was just a list of events. There was no story. And when I started to ask my friends about their stories, I asked a friend of mine who likes baseball less than anybody I've ever known, just to give him a hard time. And he answered me, and his story was so personal and wonderful that I knew what I had to do, which is to write this book.
Wow. Well, I did read about half of the book on Saturday. And what's great is that it's not a novel that you have to, sit down and read each chapter in succession. It's a collection of stories that hundreds of contributors have, given their stories, their personal experiences with baseball, first MLB game, memorable interactions with players. And my favorite chapter, and I know you like this yourself, the bats and balls and gloves that bind family and baseball. Explain what that particular chapter is all about. I got teary-eyed reading a few of those stories.
In my first book, which is called Bases to Bleachers, there was a chapter that was called Generation to Generation, Family and Baseball. And that was one of, to me, the really core chapters of the book. And I knew for the second book, I needed to repeat that. Obviously, all different stories and a different title. But that's just an amazing chapter that really summarizes to me why baseball is just so critical to so many people. It's the passing down of the memories and the stories from one generation to the next.
Well, you had a contribution, as a matter of fact, from Brett Boone about his family, including his dad, former Philly Bob Boone, and especially about his grandfather, Ray Boone. Man, that one got to me. That was a great little piece.
It was yes, very remarkable, and I'm very grateful. The book is not populated with stories of famous people,
Right.
But I was very grateful to be able to get the story from Brett Boone.
Oh, I should mention, while enjoying the chapter about fans' memories of their first ball games, this one guy was recalling his first one, a Phillies-Braves game at Connie Mack Stadium in 1966. Tony Cloninger pitching for the Braves, Hank Aaron and the Phillies, Richie Allen going a combined 0 for 8. And then I saw the guy's name at the end, and it was your friend and mine, Matt Goldberg, who wrote it. How about that?
Yeah, one of the amazing, unexpected results of this book has been the friendships that I've made. And I'm not using the word friendship lightly. I mean, Matt has become a very, very close friend of mine. I actually have a story in his Rings of Kindness.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
And it's about how people helped me in the process of writing my books, people that I had no reason to think or expect would ever do anything for me. And they just stepped up and did so.
Yeah, Matt's a good guy, and I have his book, but I haven't read it yet. So sorry, Matt, I will get to it, I promise. Well, while there are 20 chapters or so in this book, I assume about the same number in the first book, there are hundreds of stories from contributors. How the heck did you solicit all these stories and compile them? I mean, there are terrific stories from a lot of contributors.
Yeah, so I mentioned to you that when I first had this idea, I started to ask people, and I'll try to be brief about this. I sent out an email to about 30 people, and I got that email from my friend who doesn't like baseball, and I knew what I had to do. So then I started asking more friends. I asked my friends to ask friends. And then wherever you were, if you had some kind of baseball paraphernalia on or something that indicated you were a baseball fan, I would ask you, I would tell you about this book that I was writing. Do you have a story to contribute? And from New York originally and live in San Francisco, I had a lot of Giants and Mets and Yankee stories and, Dodgers and that kind of thing. But I really wanted to broaden, the scope of where they were coming from. So I joined some Facebook groups, and that's when it really took off. And by the time of the first book, I had 1,200 stories and from 14 different countries. How I put it together? For a while, I had no idea how it was going to happen. And I'm a little reluctant to use this term. It just kind of happened organically, right? At some point, it became clear that if there would be a chapter about first games. There would be a chapter about being with your mom or your dad. There would be a chapter about catching a ball or not. That's actually in the second book. Why it's not in the first, I don't know, and it doesn't matter. But some stories just very naturally fit into very specific categories. I mean, I remember sitting in my living room with like 25 piles of paper, each representing a specific chapter. And I mean, that's how it all came together. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, the only nerve-wracking thing about it was which stories to not include. Because, after 1,200 stories, you would need a Sherpa to carry a book around that big. And, So I narrowed the first book has 275 stories from probably about 265 contributors. I mean, the one that just amazes me is a guy from Ghana. I mean, Ghana, right? This guy was walking to work one day and he sees some kids playing with a stick and a ball. He had no idea what that was. And now he's a high school baseball coach for men and women.
Again, we're talking about the new book right now, Backyards to Ballparks. Hey, like me, you're a lifelong baseball fan, and we've seen a lot of changes in the sport over the last 60 years or so. What stands out as something that you like as far as the changes, and what do you hate? What do you not like about what's changed?
I think all of us talk a lot about the rules changes that have occurred in the last several years. I personally, and I thought about this a lot, how to answer it, because my knee-jerk reaction as a traditionalist is to say I don't like them. And I realized that I don't necessarily like them philosophically, but I don't mind them practically. I'm not the kind of guy who goes to a game and says, "Oh God, this is too long. We got to go." I mean, when we bring people to a game that have never been to a game and they say, "How long does it last?" I mean, you know what the answer to that is? It lasts as long as it lasts.
Right.
That said, it's not like I enjoy being in a 3-hour and 45-minute 2-1 game. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit much. So it's kind of, I can answer your question, I suppose, by saying it's both things. I've come to accept them and think that most of the rules changes, while I don't agree with them, for example, I love the fact that a relief pitcher has to throw to 3 batters now, right?
Me too. Yeah.
I don't agree with it because I think it's taken away the manager's prerogative and strategy. And it's kind of like you use all your relief pitchers by the 9th inning and you're going to extra innings. Well, that's too bad on you. You have to deal with the consequences. Being at a game, and we sit near what used to be the visitors' bullpen, but that, for safety reasons, outfield. What pitcher after pitcher, batter after batter, it got long and annoying. So I think that's the answer to your question. It's the same thing. I don't like them philosophically, but practically, I like them. I will never, ever, ever accept the ghost runner at second base to start off.
Oh,
I will never,
you're not alone. A
never.
lot of people feel that way, including my radio partner,
Never.
Bill Furman. He'll be thrilled to hear you say that. Hey, I want to talk a little music with you, Eric, but first, tell folks where they can find this cool book, and do you have any signings or appearances coming up?
I do. I have one in Villanova, actually, on April 7th. That's at 1:00. It's I'd rather not give out the address if it's okay, because it's a private home, but I would like to give people my email address, how they can contact me. My email address is Eric, ERIC, baseball stories, long word, but fairly simple. It's stories, plural. Also find me on Messenger or contact me through my website, basestobleachers.com. It's going to be what I do in my talks. It's going to be at 1:00. It'll be done by 4:00 so she can watch the Phillies game, because she was very, very adamant about that. And what I do is I talk about the book and how it came about and how I obtained stories a lot. And then, of course, I read a number of stories. And you could also, if any of your viewers are curious about would I like to do this, you could look at my YouTube channel, Bases to Bleachers. I've been reading and talking about some of the stories.
All right. Well, Eric, as I said, big music fan here. You are too. You're an administrator for a Facebook page called Obscure, mostly Song of the Day. And I believe you told me you're hoping to do a music book similar to your baseball ones. Is that true?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, I haven't started full in on it, but I probably got over 100 stories. And it's going to be the same kind of concept. I'm just a believer in the stories of every man, right? That's Jackson Browne reference. I'm just a big believer in the stories that the everyday person tells. They don't have to be stories from famous people. And, it's going to be stories about being at a great concert, but why, right? Not just I was at a great concert. There's got to be why. What made it special? What did it do for you? It's like my baseball books. It's going to be more the personal element. It's like saying I was at Hank Aaron's 715th home run. If that's all you tell me, well, that's great for you, but there's nothing about that. There's nothing compelling that would make somebody want to read that story, right? And the music book will be about the same thing. If you saw the Beatles in the Cavern Club and that's all you tell me, well, there's no story there. But getting to know a guy who was there for the rooftop concert, well, that's a whole different thing, and how he describes what happened. So yeah, I can't wait to do this this book.
Oh, as I do, you occasionally ask people for lists of favorite songs by a particular artist, and you recently asked people for their 20 favorite songs of all time. I tried to put that list together, but I kept beating myself up over what should and shouldn't be included because it changes from day to day for me. So I gave up, just too daunting.
You know, and my wife is exactly the way you are. She's not a list maker. You know, she said she gave it a shot, and then she said every song from Blue, you know, Joni Mitchell's Blue. I said, some people enjoy the challenge of doing it, recognizing that it may be different tomorrow. Some people just can't do it. Some people have to just let it be. That's my number one song, Let It Be.
I got you. All right, Eric, before we wrap up, I'm going to put you on the spot and play a little game of Fast Five. Now, the only rule, keep your answers brief. So let's give it a shot. Number one, who is your all-time favorite San Francisco Giant?
Matt Cain.
Okay, I have to ask why.
Matt Cain isn't the sexy choice, right? It's Ted Lincecum or Madison Bumgarner. Matt Cain was a guy who went and did his work. He got no support. He never blamed anybody. Matt Cain, and there's a story in my book about how my wife and I watched his perfect game from our den, and our daughter was in the press elevator, and our son was in D.C., and how this game did what baseball always does, which is keep us together.
Wow. Number two, since we are a Philly area operation, who is was your favorite Philly to watch play?
You know, I didn't see them play very often. I remember having a real interest for Johnny Callison.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Maybe I liked his name. I remember he had a home run in the All-Star game in '64. Yep. I liked Tony Taylor. I don't know why, but there's a story in my book about a guy who his encounter with Tony Taylor at a game. So these are some of the names. And Richie Allen, how could you not, you know?
Yeah. He was my favorite back in the day, Richie Dick Allen. Number three, regarding music, my first concert was Kiss in 1976. What was yours?
Rascals, 1966 at Plainview High School. Excuse me, the Young Rascals in 1966. Followed soon after by seeing Steppenwolf.
Oh, nice. Number four, give me a band or artist that you've never seen but wish you had, and you can't say the Beatles.
I think about this a lot. I would say would either be the Hollies or the Pretenders.
Ooh, I've seen the Pretenders. Very good.
Big Hollies fan, big British Invasion fan. They started my journey with music.
Number five, finally, what is the best baseball movie, or your favorite anyway?
The obvious answer would be Field of Dreams. I would say that, or possibly Sandlot.
Good choices. Good choices. All right, Eric. Again, the book is Backyards to Ballparks. I got it. Find it, buy it. And where can people find you on social media?
I have a Facebook page, Bases to Bleachers. They can find me on my own personal page. Thanks for plugging the book. The book is available online. If anybody wants to get a signed copy from me, it's the same cost, except, of course, it'd be shipping costs. So, you know, if that doesn't matter and you'd like to get a signed copy with a long note, not just a signature, you can contact me on that email address, eric.baseballstories@gmail.com, or through my Facebook page or through my YouTube page. It's there.
As I had a hunch it would be, this was a lot of fun. Eric C. Gray, thanks, my friend.
Thank you, Chet. Appreciate it.
Hey, Chet, very nice, man. Very nice work and great interview.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. A lot of great baseball stories in here. Some of them will bring you to tears. Some of them will give you a big smile. Check it out, Backyards to Ballparks.
It must be really good if you actually read it, because I know you're not a huge.
I don't like to read, but yeah, I did read the great majority of this one, and Angelo Cataldi's book also. So I'm doing way too much reading this last year or so.
Very good. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Hey, let's move on. Sixers, they've won 2 in a row, hanging on to that 6th spot, at least for a day or so. Can we get our hopes up any, or is the collapse still collapsing?
Well, as we put up the standings, they are very much clinging to that 6th seed right now. Just a half game ahead of the Pacers, just 1 game ahead of the Heat, who the Sixers did manage to beat the other night. Very big win. But the problem now, they go on a 4-game West Coast trip. They'll be playing out in Phoenix tonight at 10 o'clock. Bill, I know you're going to stay up and watch the entire 48 minutes.
I tell you what, there's a chance I could watch the Oscars before I watch the Sixers on the West Coast. I hate to say. Hey, so what's the latest on that Joel Embiid?
Nobody knows. They haven't really. They're optimistic that he will be back before the end of the season, but that's all they've said. We have seen video of him shooting around a bit on the court, so that's a good sign. He's upright. He's able to shoot the basketball. Haven't seen him run yet, so I don't know. I'm waiting for some kind of a major update, like, yeah, Joel's going to be back by April 10th. No, we're not getting that just yet. So just hang on, Bill. We'll see what happens.
You know what's going to happen? He ain't coming back. He's not coming back.
I think he's coming back, but how effective will he be? Who knows?
Yeah. I think they're playing it too close to the vest, and he's not coming back. Anyway, hey, great guest tonight in Chris Wheeler, Bob Vetrone Jr., Eric Gray. Who is coming to Philly Press Box Radio next week?
Just confirmed, Bill, a few hours ago. It is Phillies radio play-by-play man, Mr. Scott Fransky.
Nice.
Love the Fransky, man. And, he's been with us, I think, the last 5 years. He might have missed 1 year, but right around this time, right before the season starts. So great to get the insight from the one and only Scott Fransky.
Hey, push get the replay out, and it's Bedlam at the bank. Let's get dusted off and ready to go. Hey, we're going to squeeze in a minute of Eagles talk, Chet. They signed a pretty good linebacker in Devin White. They've also signed Zach Bond and Oren Burks, a couple more linebackers, three linebackers in free agency. They restructured Josh Sweat's deal. Looks like he's sticking around. Lost a couple O-line guys, signed Kenny Pickett. And just, I think, in the last couple hours, they've signed Tyler Hall, a cornerback from the Raiders, who has played for them for the last 3 years. Whether that's a depth move or he's going to get a chance to play, we'll see. But looks like Tyler Hall is coming to the nest.
Did not know about that one. Devin White, we're hoping we get the top 5 draft pick from several years back. And not the guy who the last 1 or 2 years wasn't great, to be honest. We'll see. Good size, decent player. But like I said, we don't know what to expect at this point. Just like with the other guy they got recently, Huff. He had the great year, last year.
Huff better be good. They paid him like he's good.
Yeah, he better be good.
Be good.
None of these moves, none of these additions are like clear-cut winners. Like, yeah, this guy's gonna make the difference. But it's hopeful in each case. So we'll see. And I like the Kenny Pickett thing too. He didn't turn out maybe as well as some people thought he would. As far as being the Steelers quarterback, but I think he's a good backup, certainly. And I like the fact that he grew up as an Eagles fan, too. So that made me smile.
And he's just a kid. I mean, I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. He's a young quarterback that wasn't in a great situation. The thing with the Steelers is that offensive line all got old together, and they weren't very good. So, he's going to be in a better situation. I don't think he's certainly not taking Jalen Hurts' job. No. But I think, I think he's in a good place. I like it.
Yeah. And, if Hurts goes down for a game or two, hopefully he can, have learned the offense by then and fill in adequately. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of him in the preseason at least. And, they'll learn more about him at that point. But seems like a likable young man, and we wish him the best.
Yeah, and one other thing, I'm not going to go over the whole list, but if you look at the list of Eagles free agents, a lot of guys who were able to leave are still unsigned. There could be a lot of guys brought back from that roster, and whether they're depth position guys or what they decide to do with them. But there's some pretty good players that are still out there. Why they didn't sign, who knows? Maybe there's some injury issues. I don't know. But there's some help out there that might come a little cheaper.
And we still have to see what's going to happen with Hassan Reddick, because that's yet to be resolved. So
right.
As always, I say, Bill, we shall see. Now we'll wrap it up.
All right, let's do it. Let's thank tonight's special guests, Chet, Chris Wheeler, Bob Vetrone Jr., and Eric Gray. Our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Cavs Phillies Tailgate, PPCC 118 Raz Room. For Jim Chet Chesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll join Philly Press Box Radio next Wednesday, March the 27th at 7 p.m. You can see us live on Facebook and on our Philly Press Box Radio YouTube channel, and listen on Google Podcasts as well as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the others. With that, Chet, high hopes, Philadelphia sports fans.
I hope he has